about eating healthy and our food. And this would be a 2-part series. And this whole thing with what's it? Well, let's start out with the most important thing. So, as I'm going, I'm taking my blood pressure medication for the first time in my life. And I kind of am like going around, trying to see what people's health problems are. I'm meeting a lot of people with this, taking the same blood pressure medications. Now, they come in all varieties. They come in old, they come in young, they come in super healthy and athletic, and they come from people who are just following the rules. They're trying to do the best that they can. These people that are taking this medication are having serious problems with asthma and breathing. And it's a respiratory problem. So, there's a lot of respiratory problems from other things, and we were talking about that being just one bad apple in your kitchen or a food spoiling in your fridge causing mold spores. And those spores carry virus. And when you see that, even just a little bit of that, I mean, it could be a pinpoint. If you see that stuff, it means it's already in the air. So if you feel a little tingling or raspy, and that virus gets in your system, and because you're oxygenating your respiratory, it's able to cling on the cell walls, sprout a little bit, causing that respiratory inflammation. But normally your antibodies form and take care of that. I think one thing I was missing was about the antibodies. So what you do is, if you see this fruit or this vegetable bad in the fridge, you got to take it out, throw it away immediately, and spray some disinfectant, because it's a neutralizer. It neutralizes those spores in the air. But it also gives you some exposure so that it cleans up, if you got anything inside you that chemical neutralizes. I mean, you get a little bit of exposure breathing. You can smell the scent of Lysol just very lightly, is all it takes to neutralize that stuff in your respiratory also. And kills it from the outside, where it's able to do a little bit of activation on the outside of the cell walls before your body figures out it's penetrating to kick in the antibodies. Now, this 2-part series has nothing to do with that stuff. So it's about blood pressure and what people think is helping them. And the first is about blood pressure and people that have to wind up on blood pressure medication, and then the second part is about drug addiction recovery, but it involves the same thoughts that we're experiencing as healthy people on these medications. And the self-medication, what's happening to them self-medicating and then going wrong in this drug recovery. So I'm seeing a lot of older people that are on blood pressure medication. They're not having any problems. They're perfectly healthy, and it looks like the answer for most everybody, because you got someone 75 years old going into the doctor, taking this stuff every day, and they're healthy as can be. I mean, and you're getting a lot of reviews of old people going in on the same blood pressure medication, not having any trouble, healthy as can be, and there's no problems there. And now we're a young person, we're just getting on this blood pressure medication, and we're going in because we know that we need something like that, so that's what we're requesting to the doctor. But I think what it is there's no follow-up information with why we're having blood pressure problems. So I'm getting these young people there, healthy, like super fitness. I mean, look like all-star freaking Baywatch and all kind of stuff like that. But anyways, all these healthy people that are medium age are having this little bit of an asthma problem. So I was having a little bit too, but I was having more of this thing is called Reynolds disease. It's kind of, they call it disease because it's something that's constantly happening to you. It's not like getting a cold and then the cold going away 2 weeks later. It's something that stays with you. So they're having problems with numbing in my fingers and hands, and I do a little bit of nicotine, and I also use an antihistamine for my allergies, and to find out that those are vasoconstrictors. Coffee's a vasoconstrictor. Alright, now when I was having to go into this stuff to find out what vasoconstrictors are, I had to find out what vasodilators are, and that's what I was pursuing was a vasodilator, but it's under a medication form. Right, there's vasodilators that are natural things, like the citrate in orange juice. Peanuts. Peanuts are a vasodilator. There is a chicken is even a little bit of a vasodilator. Okay, so I had to go in and I had to study, these things, and for my situation, having a vasoconstriction problem is Reynolds disease. Other people have asthma, which is the same kind of thing, except it's something in their lungs where their vascular is too constricted and they can't breathe. They have to use a butyrol to be able to get that oxygen, and it's a steroid to be able to relax. It's almost like a very temporary muscle relaxers. All the butyrol is. But because it's temporary, it makes it a steroid. So when I was going through this, okay, the main thing is we have asthma. We're taking the vasodilator and it's making things better in the temporary. And then what's happened is now this whole group of young people that are on this vasodilator medication, it did help in the beginning, and now they're having really severe problems from it. And they're just taking it because that's what the doctor says do. When you start taking a prescribed vasodilator, you can't quit taking it because it's super dangerous. You can die. So these people have to keep taking this medication. They can't quit it. So what I'm doing is I had Reynolds disease, and I'm very moderate. I was just doing, preemptive preparedness for something that I'm going to experience in my life. So when I got mild and moderate symptoms, I run to the doctor right away. I didn't wait until it's too late. I do something a little bit early if I'm experiencing a little bit of a problem. Then you try to use a pain scale from 1 to 10, and I don't know if that really helps as a scale of, do you believe your symptoms are mild, moderate, or severe? And I believe that, like, when you're in the doctor, you need a medication so bad that you get a little bit fearful in your first appointment, that you say it's always like one notch more bad than it is, just so that you can make sure that you're getting prescribed something that you need. Alright? Because I've gone in there and I say it's something mild. Well, if it's mild then you don't need it. It's probably be done with in a day. But mine was mild severeness enough where I was getting my medication no matter what. So I said I had moderate symptoms. So they're going in here, and these people have taken this medication. It did help for the first year, year and a half, 2 years, and now with the asthma and this, and now we got a virus that's rampant. We're not thinking about maybe a change in medication or a change period. We're thinking this is probably the virus. I better eat healthy to build up my defense system. So they're eating healthier, but these foods, okay, there's vasoconstrictor foods, coffee, maybe too much vitamins from Monster energy drinks, and then there's vasodilator foods like orange juice, peanuts, and chicken. And they're good. Both are good, but then something good, too good, it could be a bad situation for people. Especially people who are having, problems right now. So this is my story on what I researched or experienced firsthand. I lived this. This is what I believe. This is my best opinion on this subject. All right. When you're a kid growing up, all right, a vasodilator opens up your vascular system and can transport more blood. And when this happens, you get more oxygen, more nutrients, more everything. Alright, so when you're a kid and you're drinking orange juice and you're eating chicken and you're doing peanuts and you're growing, those little things are creating blood flow so that they can get more nutrients and more stuff to their body. And they grow up. They grow up pretty quick. They don't stay a kid very long. Alright, really healthy for a growing situation. And coffee's bad for a growing situation. Don't give kids coffee. That's what they say. They don't need it. Maybe they need a little bit if they're having inflammation, but really kids don't ever need it because they don't get inflammation. They say that a growing human being usually doesn't experience any of this too much of a vascular dilation or too much of a vascular constriction until the age of 25. And what happens after the age of 25 is because our growing has matured and we're matured, a lot of things turn off, like our collagen productions and a lot of different things that fruits and vegetables provide. Alright, so when you're getting older, they're saying you need lots of, your fruits and vegetables, your greens, do that. Alright? But in people who are having asthma and these younger people that are on these blood pressure medications, you really need to look at why they're on them in the first place. Like, mainly they're having a problem from something. There's, some people claim it's genetic, but I think that it's literally habits. Like, if I gotta go eat fast food all the time, or if I gotta go have an ice cream every other day, or I gotta go and I really like peanut butter sandwiches. It brings you back to your childhood. Or I like, a lot of orange juice, like one of those things that bring you back to your childhood. All right, you're going in here first with asthma. And your asthma is from a vasoconstriction. Now, this can be natural just from a high metabolism. Can cause a vasoconstriction. Altitude can play an effect on it. Just a number of factors, exposure to certain work environments if you work a lot harder than other people do. Now, vasodilation in this situation where you're constricted is a must needed thing. It's like if you're not getting enough blood flow to your lungs, you can't breathe. If you're not getting, your veins aren't wide enough to get blood to your fingers and toes, they're going to go numb and sting and tingle and do all these different things. But then you go and you treat this. Maybe all it was is orange juice that I needed, or maybe all it was is peanuts that I needed. Maybe all it was is a little more chicken in my diet is all I needed. It could be so, but in the situation that you ate more chicken, you ate more peanuts, and you drank more orange juice and nothing helped, you're going to go have to seek a medication that's specifically there to regulate your blood pressure, open up your veins the way that they're supposed to be, and, without inflammations. Now, it plays a really big part, these inflammations, so you're taking these drugs and all of a sudden you're eating peanuts, you're eating or drinking orange juice, and you're eating chicken, and you're on a vasodilator medication. A vasodilator food is an inflammatory food. It's really good for certain things. Inflammation, when you've already dilated or inflamed your vascular system. Even more inflammation is not good. All right, what's inflammatory foods? They're not dilator foods, but some inflammatory foods include dilator foods. You got chicken, orange juice, peanuts, but then you got other inflammatory foods that aren't dilators. Sugar. Sugar is the hugest one, is the most inflammatory food that there is. Period. But it is freaking great. You're a kid, you can have a little more sugar. It's a good thing. Alright. And then you got bread. Bread is something that can be sugary. You got cakes, you got Pop-Tarts, you got these things, but also yeast turns into sugar eventually. So what happens is a non-yeast bread is more expensive because it takes more components. You got to use an extra cup of flour to make a non-yeast bread. It's also dry and bitter, and it's just not like a fluff, good tasting bread. When you bake the bread fresh as can be, the yeast is not decomposed, it is not transformed, it's pretty much a gluten-free or a non-sugar food when it's a fresh bread. And you can make a long-term shelf bread gluten-free, but the only way to do that is to not use yeast. And it really changes the texture and the taste and the flavor and everything, and it's not so good as a bread made with yeast. Now, when you put a bread on the shelf, the yeast that's in there, if it's just sitting on the shelf, it's not a fresh bread, is going to turn into sugar. So all the yeast that fluffed it up, whatever remnants of it is left, is going to turn into sugar, which is the gluten. Alright? So that could be another enemy. Now, a vasodilator food, which is a chicken, is also another worst enemy. Why does it dilate? Orange juice dilates because it's a citrate. Peanuts dilate because of literally its genetics, because of it's a root that is got a protein in it that's similar to our vascular system. So when our body digests it, takes out the proteins have all kinds of different things, and then our motor functions is let our body break down those proteins and they reconstruct them to where they're supposed to go. Where does this component of the protein go in the body? Well, in peanut proteins, they go through the vascular system, and it causes our veins to be about as wide as a peanut. That's because that's the kind of genetics that are in the peanut. Now, this is great for growing kids, and it's even great for adults when they need an inflammation food. So let's not think of inflammation as always bad. We need inflammation, and then when we need to balance back out of inflammation, we need to cut back and we need to constrict our system a little bit. It's like a balancing act. But this chicken, what's chicken? How is it dilating the vascular system? And it has a triglyceride inside of our body. All right, triglycerides are recognized as an enemy of the body. So what happens, how it dilates, is when we get a whole bunch of triglycerides in our system, our body doesn't use the triglyceride part as a protein building block, but it does use other parts of the chicken as a protein building block, like the fibers, and if there's the vitamins, and there's other things in there, and there's other good proteins. But because it's a bird, a bird, they have figures of a human versus a bird versus something else, and it's actually our design of our body is based on a spectrum, a light scale. So humans are made infrared. Oh, it's a butterfly I was thinking about. So humans, their whole body, their whole component structure of living is based on an infrared system. So the matter inside our body is infrared. The matter inside of a bird is called a high frequency matter, and the bird or the matter inside a butterfly is called a UHF. It's an ultra high frequency matter. So life does exist on Earth in three different states. It's called what is it? Infrared. So humans are infrared, and then it's called high frequencies, HF. So those are the birds, and then we got butterflies, and they're ultra high frequencies. Okay, because the bird's matter consists of an HF, it contains a triglyceride in it that makes that bird an HF. And we are what we call infrared and IR. So when we put an HF component in the IR body, it has to get out. A triglyceride is a HF component. So our body doesn't construct its matter on an HF component. So when we digest it, our body sends antibodies, they're called killer T cells or killer blood cells, and they attack the triglycerides. Well, what happens is because it is a bird, we get a lot of these triglycerides in our blood system. When it digests from our body, it goes straight into the bloodstream, and then everything is sorted out from the bloodstream. If it goes into our muscles, our bones, our eyes, our organs, and then it sorts the stuff out that doesn't go into our bodies, like triglycerides, glutens, and other things. So it separates these things. Now, when the antibodies go into your system, an antibody is inflammation chemical. So why it happens this way is when you get the triglycerides in your system, the inflammation chemical automatically inflames your body so that it can dilate your blood system so that it can get more circulation, more airflow, and then it can put more antibodies and more blood into your system. So it actually increases your blood volume so that it can remove this stuff. Now, that's what makes it a dilator. is it dilates based on inflammatory properties. All right, citrate dilates on a chemical property. So citrate, the orange juice, is more like a chemical that's being released from an antibody that dilates the system. It's a lot healthier inflammatory uh, food or dilator food, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so my friends are in a situation where they're having asthma. It could have been caused from coffee. It could have been caused from, I forget what else does it. There's a couple different foods that do constrict the vascular systems and your body. Uh, but anyways, they get constricted. They have asthma. They can't breathe. They might have smaller lungs than some people, and their body is just as strong. So they wind up with asthma. And another thing with asthma is inflammation in the respiratory system. So it's one of those things, like they can have asthma from a constriction, and they can have asthma from an inflammation. Now, they're taking this albuterol to discombobulate the inflammatory part in the esophagus and the upper part of the bronchial tubes. And it remains that way, but it's also a little bit of a steroid for the property that it is, so it allows your respiratory to be a little bit stronger. So if you have trouble catching your breath, you're able to breathe in a lot stronger. So it really opens it up. Like if you have that extra steroid in there, it gives that extra strength, that energy to open it up each time that you're taking a breath. So they're taking this, but then all of a sudden they're having trouble breathing, or no, not trouble breathing, but they're having trouble with the numbing in the fingers. They're getting this Reynolds disease like me. So they go to the doctor and they're like, hey, I can't move my arm or I can't move my hand. And the doctor gets worried. They're like, oh, you need blood pressure medication. And it's really nice because it regulates your blood pressure, dilates it at a steady rate, and it's not overly powerful either, the way that it's prescribed. It's what your body can naturally process, however that is. But it's really dangerous. When you start taking these blood pressure medications, you cannot stop. And the whole reason you can't stop is because once you dilate, your body starts to increase its blood volume. Oh, there's more room in there. Let's create more red blood cells, more white blood cells, more of this stuff. So if you quit taking the medication and it doesn't remain in dilation, it tries to go back to a natural state, which isn't even constriction. It just tries to go back like to a natural reflex. And because your blood volume is so high now, because you've been taking this stuff, you're going to have an extremely high blood pressure that you can die from it. All right? Seriously. Now, there's ways that you can safely go about quit taking this medication, like going and donating vital blood plasma. Like, okay, I need to go stop taking it. You can wean off. After you do a donation, you can, take half a pill and take half a pill a few days and then take no pill, or a quarter pill and then take no pill. And you can wean off like that. Now, that can happen a lot quicker weaning off like that, but a doctor's not there to supervise, so it's not going to be recommended. Now, if you have this situation where you have to get off the medication, how they're going to do that is they're going to have to wean a lot slower, and I'm telling you, it's going to take you a couple months. So automatically they're gonna cut your prescription dose in half, and you're gonna take that for a couple months until your body regulates that blood volume. And then it might even give you a little bit lower dose, and then say, take this a couple weeks, and then quit taking it altogether. And something feels funny, you might have to take it, or you need to come and visit me, and I can tell you what to do. Because a lot of people are going to need guidance, especially on something like that, because they don't want to run the risk. But the whole thing is you can keep taking this blood pressure medication and keep taking this inhaler and all this, and you could be 80 years old, and I've been doing it for 5 years and I didn't have any problem. So you don't need to come off the medication, right? It's very correct, but there's a reason how not to come off the medication. These people have figured out inflammatory foods, what doesn't work in their diet, what kind of food allergies they have, what kind of medicine allergies they have, what kind of labor intensive stamina that I use from day to day at 70, 80 years old. They don't go into the situation where they're taking something and then they're forced to do more than what they're supposed to do, like working a tough job or a hard job. So I'm having all these middle-aged friends that are now on this medication. They're taking the asthma, and they're taking the blood pressure medication. They're doing really good the first year and a half, and then all of a sudden, this huge inflammation spike happens that they're unaware of. They think it's COVID or virus or whatever it is. And they're getting a little bit worried, and to getting worried, they're eating more foods and these, essential things like, oh, I need healthy food. I need more protein. Let's eat peanuts. I better drink orange juice. It's got vitamin C in it. And, the chicken is really good for my exercise. I got bigger muscles from eating chicken all these years. Well, what's happening is when they're doing this, it's causing, from the regulation that they've had and the strength that they got from the steroids, they're overlooking food allergies really, really bad. And what's happening is because they're adding these food allergies, it's causing vascular growth. Now, vascular dilator in an old person with the type of skills that they have to regulate their own body, they're not running a risk. If they're getting a little bit of vascular growth, it's not concerned to them because they got, 20 years to live versus a young person who's in their 20s and 30s and 40s who want to make it to the same age, and they believe they got 50 years to live. And all of a sudden, they're getting this huge, inflammation is being more inflamed by vascular growth because of the dilation of inflammatory foods. Peanuts probably being the worst number one thing, period, for someone who's on blood pressure medication in the middle age. They're having serious problems. They can breathe, but then they can't breathe because of the pressure now. Now they have so much in there that they can't breathe. They got all this vascular, and this, because it's more and more and more muscles or vascular, it needs more and more oxygen, and then now there's not enough room in there to capture the enough oxygen to support this kind of a vascular system that they've created themselves. Now, this is something that you need to seriously take a look at as a doctor, because this is what happened. I go in and I get prescribed my medications for Reynolds disease, but I have I'm not being told that I gotta completely quit eating certain foods, like serious. Like, if you take this medication, young person, you have to completely change your diet also. Like, everything that was good for you now, or before you had this medication, is now no longer good for you. And that's a really tough cookie to chew, because that's 50 years now. I gotta go without peanuts, I gotta go without orange juice, I gotta go without eating so much chicken. I tell you what, the number one inflammatory food is definitely gotta be the peanuts. Your orange juice is gonna be number two, and your chicken's gonna be number three. But chicken, in the situation of triglycerides and asthma, it can put you in a really bad situation, because it causes so much of a immune system response. It attacks your organs. It attacks your thyroid, your pancreas, your kidneys, your liver, uh, your bronchial tubes, your brain, the whole thing. Just because of the triglycerides, which are good for everyone, almost everyone, except for the certain situations that you're in. All of a sudden, I'm taking this medication, and I didn't recognize that I have a food allergy now. Okay, now, after we got all that cleared off the board, we gotta look at this. Okay, I got a lot of people that I care about, and I just met another middle-aged person tonight. So is having a little bit more problem than I could have ever, expected. But I have always done my question, like, hey, I'm on a blood you're having trouble breathing, you might need a blood pressure medication. Oh, I'm already on that. Oh, when you tell me that, there's not much that I can say. I don't have enough time to say it. It took me 37 minutes to just explain what happened to what your problem is right now. And we don't have 37 minutes to explain it in detail like that. So when I go to the doctor, it's kind of scary. So all of a sudden, the doctor says this is going to help me. This is what I'm supposed to do. Don't quit taking it. And all of a sudden, something scary is happening to me. Now I can't breathe. When I just could breathe all year long after taking the medication, and there's a virus going around. And I think it's the virus, and I have no background in molecular biology, no background in biopharmaceutical physics. I have no background in physical chemistry. But I do have faith in God. That's the biggest thing. So these people, they really take the word for it. They don't have a choice. And this situation is all of a sudden we have to catch this stuff, for these people or believe that they have a virus or dying from something else that could be prevented very easily just by recognizing food allergies. Because they're middle-aged, taking blood pressure medications. And I tell you, this whole thing is serious. So what's tough is now I got this problem, and I don't want to go to the doctor, because if I get coronavirus, I can't go to work, I can't do all these different things. And this whole thing was so bad, because the way that it started out is there was no signs, no symptoms, nothing when I started work. But this person also mentioned they have an inhaler, and they're dealing with asthma, and they're taking blood pressure medication. So they go into work, and they're receiving the stimulation where it's a lot more overstimulated. They're not working a call center job. They're standing on their 2 feet for 8 hours. And there's a lot of people. They're dealing with a lot of people. I got a meet and greet with probably 500 to 1,000 people in 8 hours for 10 seconds. All right, all of a sudden they get overly stimulated because they have to process this high and by and do all these different things and stand on their 2 feet all at the same time, and they're getting this high anxiety, and it's causing what I believe is after about 4 to 6 hours is causing a vasoconstriction, and it's all the vasoconstriction is being caused by is the labor intensity. And what happens after this is because it constricts a little bit, it booms up. I mean, skyrockets the blood pressure because they've been on the vasodilator and they have the larger blood volume in their body. All of a sudden, it's high blood pressure like hell. And they were breathing just fine when they got to work, and they're breathing fine just the first 4 to 6 hours. But the last 2 hours, when it just that was the pushing it to the limit, and it causes this constriction, skyrockets their blood pressure. All of a sudden, all that vascular system inside the respiratory, it gets that high blood pressure from the larger blood volume, and all of a sudden it's harder for the oxygen to get through those bronchotubules, and it's also increased the space that the vascular system is taking up, so it causes pressure and they can't breathe. Basically what's happening. And I'm telling you, like, to relax, to get home and relax, just for it probably take you 3 or 4 hours. Maybe it take you 2 hours. It might even take you one if you're really good at relaxing. But just, keep breathing, stay calm, and relax. Getting out the door at that lasted that 8-9 hour shift when they came in completely healthy is really difficult for them. Like, can't breathe because of their asthma and all this stuff happening, and then the high blood pressure that had occurred from just the stimulation at work. It was kind of scary for people, and I believe that you can avoid having to be overstimulated that way. And overstimulation can occur in your digestion, especially, and overstimulation can occur by what they call is a systematic function. So, systematically, you ate peanuts for 2 or 3 days, and you had a glass of orange juice, and you had some chicken. All that stuff is in your system. All right. It's all in there, and it was doing a great process of organizing, getting what the body doesn't need out and getting what the body needs in, and it was doing great when you're calmed down, and it was just an awesome thing. I could eat those foods every day for the rest of my life. But in a situation where you felt that great, getting to work and working your first 4 to 6 hour shift, and all of a sudden the last 2 hours I feel like I'm dying, maybe those foods weren't so great. All right. So those might have been the foods that I should have been looking out for way before time, and totally avoided that last 2 hour panic anxiety of my shift because of the high blood pressure situation with the additional inflammation that was caused by just those food allergies. Okay, now if you go in, like, you really got to divide it up. Like, you're older, your situation's retirement, and you do your blood pressure medication. And if you got to use an inhaler once in a while, that is great. You're not being overstimulated, and you can eat chicken, and you can eat orange juice, or drink orange juice, and eat peanuts. And I ain't had a problem since I was 65 years old till I'm 95 now with a blood pressure medication. That is fine for you. But in the situation where we're younger, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and we're taking this pressure medication, but we're doing our duties as citizens. You know, we got to help feed the flock. We're forced into some situations where we're overstimulated because we're young and able-bodied. We have to watch not the blood pressure medication that we're on, not the inhaler that we're using, but now we have to watch the foods that we're eating. You see what I'm saying? Because now we're in more of a high intensity situation that reflects on our eating environment, our medication environment, our physical environment within our body. They say there's no isolated situation within the body. It's all systematic. Once you eat something, it goes into the whole bloodstream. Once you get an injury and your body has to repair that, those antibodies, which release inflammatory chemicals to open up the body, or the veins, the vascular system, they release an inflammation chemical, and it's systematic. You know, it opened up the veins everywhere, the whole thing. So your inflammation and your injury is not just isolated. You have a systematic inflammation because you made an injury. Now your whole body's inflamed. And you have to look at that, like, literally, like, if you get an injury, that's why you need a rest. You need to let your body take care of those repairs while it's under inflammation or dilation. So when those repairs are done with, it can start to sort out and remove the stuff it doesn't need, the inflammatory chemicals that had increased your blood flow, so that you can go back to a normal state. Now, this whole thing is just those paper charts. If you do those beforehand, it's so hard, this transparency, because I was doing good before I got to work, and in the last 2 hours, I thought I might have almost fallen over. So the next day, I wake up and I've calmed down, and that high intensity situation, nothing's constricted. They're going to feel right back to normal, and they're not going to think that there's a problem, and there's not going to be any transparency with the doctor, because tomorrow there's not going to be any problem, and they don't know why that problem at the last 2 hours of shift occurred. They're just kind of overlooked at, and they're not going to understand that it was the foods that they're eating. That they might have had a food allergy, allergic reaction. At the end of the shift, they didn't realize it was happening, because I tell you what, when I avoid my allergy foods or allergies specific to me, and I take my blood pressure medication, and even I drink my coffee and do my nicotine just like an inhaler would be, I can get through my whole shift without any respiratory problems. I'm serious, like every day. But if I go and I eat peanuts, chicken, and drink orange juice, I can't breathe at the end of my shift. Just my experience. I don't know if it applies to the other people that I'm seeing this happen to, but it's happened to me. It's happened to me. I'm having some kind of food allergy. Yeah, and it was a really tough cookie to chew, because I love those foods. I love orange juice. I cut chicken. I don't love it so much more, but before I used to love chicken a long time ago. And I like peanuts too. But I didn't know that these were food, causing the food. I didn't know that they had a purpose, pretty much. And I didn't know that, I go to the doctor, and a 2-hour medical situation was enough cause of concern to be transparent with my doctor. Because right after I got off work, I was fine. I mean, so being prepared beforehand, you have these things, you might want to do a thorough study, a little bit more research into what's happening to people with this stuff, because I'm telling you, I got my one friend that has the asthma and does the blood pressure medication, and will come into the gym. I hadn't seen that person for a month. Come in and look like Baywatch or super strong and breathing great and doing all these things and looking awesome, and it's kind of an addiction. It's like, man, I feel good. I really want to do that extra pump, do an extra rep, and really pull this off. This is really going to look good for photography, when I'm going out and doing Baywatch. Everyone likes looking at that. Well, at the end of the week, this high intensity workout, that person can't breathe. And it looks like a virus, choking up, coughing, all this stuff just from working out. But the person's so young, they're not seeing that the high intensity workout in combination with the food allergies is causing that problem, because I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking a vasoconstrictor and I'm doing the blood pressure medication, and I'm making it through that same session for Monday through Friday because I see the person every day, and I'm not having a single problem, and I'm not getting choked up, and I breathe handy dandy. And I meet these people on not everyday kind of thing. So when I first meet a person, I kind of, hey, what's the problem? Or it's the way that first, when you can't breathe, the first thing I think is they need a blood pressure medication. So I go up and say, hey, if you're having trouble breathing, you might want to consider blood pressure medication. Oh, I'm already on that. Well, I got to finish up that conversation because it's going to be short. We got things to do. There's another piece of equipment at the gym we got to go to. So I can only put my 2 cents in so much. I can't tell them a 53-minute long informational story of exactly what's happening to them. They don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I can't do this to help someone, each and every single person, with a 53-minute audio recording. So I gotta look past that. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do, but this is what I can do right now. So that's why I'm going through this. Alright. So we covered that whole spectrum that maybe we need some more preparedness for blood pressure medication in younger people because they absolutely need it. But when they absolutely need it, there's also risks involved. And if we're not prepared to face those risks when they come along, which is a long time away from when you start this program, I mean, it could be 6 months, a year and a half, and then all of a sudden something pops up. And what's tough is you get so bad in that situation that you think you got to quit taking your blood pressure medication because there's no other way. You can die from that without a proper guidance plan to get off that medication, because people think they can get off it quick because they can go drain their blood real fast. They just get bled. Okay, my blood volume's gone. Now I can, get off the medication real fast. But other situations are these people don't have that option because, they're disqualified or they don't like needles or whatever it is. If they're going to do a guidance plan to get off of something, and they might not even need to get off it, but because of the way that it is, they feel they have to. It's going to take a lot more weaning off than just getting bled real quick. It's just the bottom line. And, when you go to the doctor for these problems, this is the first thing they do is a blood draw. They take almost half a pint of blood, a whole blood, out of your body to bleed you. That's what they're doing. And to see, how your chemical properties and if there's any cancers or anything in there. Now, what I worry about also mentioning cancer is called overgrowth, okay? It's the overgrowth of your organs and your body. If in these vasodilators, the way that they are is they stimulate mostly bone strength and bone growth. The way that these chemical reactions happen, but other things like peanuts being my number one concern is they stimulate vascular growth. They have all the proteins for vascular growth. They're going to grow veins longer and larger. If you get going in here and all of a sudden you're taking the vasodilator, the blood pressure medication, you're on steroids, and then you're eating a safe food that is normally safe for you at any given time and safe for everybody else, but that safe food actually was one of those genetics that you didn't need in your body for the time being for what is occurring from all kinds of other obvious reasons. It's going to stimulate a vascular growth inside your respiratory. You get lung cancer from adding peanuts to the blood pressure medication at 30, 40, and 50 years old. I don't know what else to say. So, but I'm 60, 70, 80 years old and I can eat peanuts, take that and this, and I'm not having any problems. It's because you're not being stimulated. You're not in a high intensity environment. Your body isn't signaling, I need to repair muscles. I need to keep all these areas of my body strong. I need to grow muscles. Just the whole environmental factors of keeping your body in the condition for those high intensity situations. When that's overlooked and you put someone on this stuff and then they take an allergy food and then you're in high intensity for a long time, all of a sudden they get this growth that they don't know that they're getting. You have an overgrowth of something and all of a sudden you have a cancer. That's pretty scary. What is chemotherapy? What is that, guys? We need to really clean the kitchen on what's happening. So you got a chemotherapy, you're putting a poison in your body. Literally, it's a real poison to make you really, really sick. They're killing off the overgrowth in your body. If you got colon cancer, if you got kidney, you got liver cancer, you got lung cancer, it's all the same chemo. It's a poison. And it's really needed. You get a cancer like that, if you don't kill that stuff off, you're not going to have any chance. You're going to have so much pressure, everything's just going to seize up. It's going to be like an engine froze up. And it's just going to quit working one day. So consider, if you do have cancer, why chemotherapy is a good thing. But the situation that we're in is we're preventing one thing for being able to breathe, for being able to move our fingers and toes, and overlooking just a few simple instructions about allergy foods that coincide with these kind of medications can lead to cancer and run the risk of having cancer. And I really feel sad, of what it really is. Now, my body is pretty good at taking itself away and putting itself back together. When you're young and you recognize these cancer symptoms, which is the high pressure or the can't breathing from high intensity and all these stuff, if you recognize the symptoms of cancer, then you can do quite a few things to do it, just to prevent it. You can go in for a quick treatment, go through chemotherapy, kill some of your body off. It's going to hurt, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's boom, quick fix. But just like getting drained or getting weaned off, there's a long-term fix too. Changing your dieting, not eating the allergy foods that are causing you allergies, resting a lot more. Just don't do so much high intensity. Just rest. It might take you a whole year. It might take you a whole 2 years, but your body is really generous. Your body is so generous. Is really gives it knows how. When it's able to rest and really able to process, these things and get a little exercise to keep those stimulations going, not too much, not high intensity. Your body is so generous that it can remove those vascular systems that it doesn't need. It can shrink those things. It could just completely dismantle and take apart those things and get the things that you don't need in your body out. But to do it that way is not the short-term way. It's not an emergency way, but is a long-term way, and is a smart way to go about it without having to go through chemotherapy. When I'm seeing these people that are running through this problem, like where it's so much, they've been taking their blood pressure medication for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they're doing great at the beginning of the day, but by the end of their high intensity job, workout, whatever it is, that they can't breathe and they look like they're going to fall over because they can't breathe. You really have to suspect that there's a cancer going on. There's one of two things: either a cancer does exist, or they're having a food allergy. Literally, like they put some wrong things in their body. Your body's now regulating an antibody function in your body rather than having your body prioritizes also. So if you put a lot of triglycerides in your system, it's going to prioritize an antibiotic function to remove the triglycerides. Because it's prioritizing that situation, there's not for your vascular response, your reflexes, your contractions and your stretches. It's not going to prioritize that if it's prioritizing getting a priority problem completed inside the body. So just avoiding that there's allergy foods there can really save you a lot of trouble. Like if you just cut that out, you could probably reverse cancer and still take the medications that you need for a completely separate cause of concern. Honest to God. But if you don't, and it gets severe enough, which it scares me because there's a lot of people I care dearly about them. You're going to get to a state where you didn't realize that you really had cancer, and because you didn't show that transparency for that 2-hour medical problem that you experienced because you felt better the next day. You could have overlooked that was the sign and symptom that you possibly have cancer in your body. But remember, the body's generous. It can take the cancer away. Now, I was talking about those foods, but I was also talking about not a vasodilator food, but just a pure inflammation food. Bread and sugar. Sugar being the number one worst inflammation food, period. Your body only needs like 6 grams of sugar, maybe even less. Like I would say between 3 and 9 grams of sugar a day. Any more than that, I mean, depending on your activity and your blood glucose level and all that, any more than that is an automatic inflammation food. Like if you go over that daily intake, you're automatically inflaming yourself. Your body cannot process that. Sugar, all it is stored as fat. And obvious fat is an inflammation of the body. And you got to be careful. If you look at this, like metamorphosis of a butterfly. A butterfly is a caterpillar. It goes into a cocoon, metamorphosizes, and then it turns into a butterfly. Humans are the same way. What's the health of the caterpillar? It surely is something completely different from the health of the butterfly, because a caterpillar can't break its wings. It doesn't have none. So, I mean, you get an injury as a butterfly, it's going to be separate from an injury of a caterpillar. Now, humans are the same way. From the time that we're kids to 25, I mean, you could break it into two main stages, or you could go from adolescence up to teenagers, and then from teenagers to adults, and it makes it three stages. I mean, it's better to focus on health that way, but looking at it as a main majority, your dividing line, where you show cause of concern, is 25. Anyone above 25 has completely different cause of concern from anyone below the age of 25. You really need to look at their health. They can't have certain proteins, children. If you give them whey proteins, or you see ice cream getting coming out their nose or something, and the lactose intolerance and all this stuff, you gotta look at them, their size, and the way that what they are has not metamorphosized into the adults that we are. And we have two completely separate different health conditions. The kids, you really need to pay attention to this. You can eat this stuff, but the kids can't eat this stuff. It's two types of conditions here. And, when you're a kid, or you're below the age of 25, mainly our main thing as adults is we're supposed to overlook the adult condition in children and kids. That there's something that I don't need as an adult, the kids probably need it. If there's something that the kids need as a kid, the adults might not need it. And it's two separate conditions. You really need to look at nutrition for children, for teenagers, and for adults. This is a whole different kind of nutrition, and just recognizing that there's stages in life, real ones that are specific and important to our development as human beings. But I know we're at an hour and 8 minutes, and this will be a long podcast. But we're going to go into a situation right now. We're going to completely put away the situation of phase one of this two-part series. We're going to go into phase two. Now, phase two should be pretty simple. Phase two is about drug recovery. So what happens is a person gets a little bit fat, or whatever they feel is happening, and then all of a sudden they do a drug and they feel great and not fat anymore, or whatever it is, or they feel an excitement in their mind that is causing a stimulation that makes their body good. Well, it's kind of a trick. It's something that has no real guidance on. And we need to look at this. So what happens is they get on a drug and it causes, if you look at it, it's all systematic, puts a chemical in our system. Our system responds with an antibody. All of a sudden, that response causes our vascular system to dilate, and we really feel our blood flowing. And I noticed that this first 4 or 5 days, I lost a few pounds. I look pretty good. I feel pretty good about myself. I'm going to recover from this. That's not really the way that it goes. All right, first you're overstimulating your body with probably a way too potent of a chemical. It's causing a lot of antibodies to get in your system, and your vascular totally inflames because it's inflamed. It requires a lot of energy, more oxygen. It causes a lot of metabolism in the body to metabolize like your fat and stuff to try to relieve the system of these chemicals that have overstimulated the body. It looks great for the first couple, 4 or 5 days, but it's like real bad. So then you stayed on drugs, and then all of a sudden, I'm not getting any results. I'm getting fatter. Okay, this thing is called equilibrium. So those first 5 days, your body did try to do something, but the days following, because the chemical is still there, it gave up and just equilibrated and said that that chemical is now a part of your body. So it lives with that new chemical, called a virus, called a disease, whatever it is. It's systematic. It's now equilibrated in your system, and your body's learning to live with it. All right, that stuff's corrosive, poisonous, whatever it is. But I see the situation where they're going through and they do this stuff and it feels great and I'm doing good and I can breathe just fine. And then they get overstimulated. They actually have to do something that's labor intensive, some kind of physical thing. All of a sudden, a couple hours later, after this physical thing that they're doing, because that everything's inflamed, there's a dilation there, and then the high intensity constricts the rest of the body. All of a sudden, they can't breathe. Oh God, dude, those ones really think they got COVID. What happened to me? I was trying to do too much, but the whole situation is a bad situation. Is why we try to do rehabilitation, recovery. Because what you thought was good for you and did show results for a very short time, you thought results are going to remain. And that doesn't happen. The results don't remain. It probably makes it worse. And you thought you're getting results, so you continued your addiction. That costs more money than buying food at the grocery store. So all of a sudden you're eating lower calories, you're getting more results. The whole situation with those things inside your body, those kind of chemicals create so many antibodies. Antibodies will create, it's called an autoimmune deficiency, or it's just an autoimmune disease. It chemically creates yourself an autoimmune disease, and antibodies in your body will attack anything that has a chemical exposure that's supposed to get out. So if you equilibrate your thyroid with that chemical, you equilibrate your kidneys, your liver with that chemical, these antibodies are going to attack your organs where that chemical is actually attacking your organs to try to get the chemical out. This is what happens. It destroys you. It destroys your body organs and everything systematically without you knowing. That's why they get so sick. They get real dark eyes under their eyes and all these different things. And they don't do any better. And then all of a sudden they think they can go back to work and they still have this systematic equilibration. And now they can't breathe. Now they think it's a virus or something. And then all that's happening is making the wrong choice. Was it forced upon your systematic function of your body? And rehabilitating that should be real easy. Now, I can't think of what else I was thinking here. Um, yeah, that was like my 2-part series, going on an hour and 15 minutes. And I tell you what, man, I just knowing what my allergy foods are, instead of eating peanuts 5 days a week, I eat a handful once a week. It's safely, and I can still enjoy all my allergy foods by just knowing what they are. This food does this, and that food does that. And understanding, too, like, what this kind of genetic things are, like, what's the genetic transfer of these foods. Celery is an awesome genetic food because celery has literally an actin tract in it, is what they call it. It's a muscle fiber, so those little fibers inside the celery are muscle fibers, and they have building blocks for the protein structures inside our body. And especially celery has a lot of collagen in it, because all the fibers that are in there is an active collagen holding the fibers together. A muscle is a big long strand with trillions of little bridges along that strand, and each little bridge contracts and stretches, contracts and stretches. And the collagen allows it to happen. So when you take a celery and it bends a little bit, I mean, not like where it's soft and soggy, but just like a nice crisp celery, it bends a little bit. It's still able to contract and stretch, contract and stretch. It has really vital collagen properties inside those kind of foods, and there's a lot of other foods that are just the same way. So you can get all these nutrients that you need. Like, say you're on your feet all day, and all of a sudden you're really cramping up. Your leg hurts. It feels like you got a sprain. You probably didn't have enough collagen in your body. And what happens? They say that the body is constantly destroying itself and constantly repairing itself all at the same time. But you go into those high intensity situations where you're just destroying yourself faster than your body can repair itself. It's really bad, okay? Let me tell you why. Each muscle fiber is an actin tract. On this actin tract, there's these motors. They're called myosin motors. And they have some kind of like motor movement. This, chemically, by like potassium, magnesium, they move along this actin tract. Those ions from vitamins are extremely important to run these motors. While this is running around the actin tract, it's delivering a cargo. So these myosin motors go all the way down into your digestive, where there's systematic functions. And from there, they take a cargo from the digestion and they walk it over and put it in the bloodstream. And there's this own set of little motors in these little muscles in your digestive that run it over to the bloodstream. Once the cargo is in the bloodstream, there's another different type of myosin motor that captures it, is able to somehow get stuck onto the vascular wall, and then walk it over to a muscle. And on the actin tract, there's another myosin motor. And it takes that cargo and it runs it all the way down the muscle fiber. The muscle fibers are the highways of your body. And however you can get that cargo onto the highway from an on-ramp and off-ramp, you could come out of a parking garage. If you could get the cargo out from just opening the door in your house. If you could get the cargo out by airdropping it from an airplane. If you could get the cargo to space, but launch a rocket ship. If you're going to get the cargo somewhere. And all these motors are like the spaceship, the airplane, a person walking something out the door, a car driving down the road. There's each little motors are just like that. But the highway is the most important part. If the bridge collapses and there's no highway, there's a traffic jam. All of a sudden, you got all this cargo sitting in a line and it can't get to its destination. You either got to turn around and go home, or you got to turn around and go all the way back up the highway to the intersection and find a new highway to go down. Or you just got to abandon everything and wait for the repairs to get made. And then you can try again. Well, that's what happens when you're going and you don't have these strong bridges and you're going through this destruction just from activity and these reparations from being repaired, and you destroy yourself a little quicker than you can repair. All of a sudden, every bridge that was leading to your destination collapses and falls, and there's no highway for that motor to follow on the Acton track. It can't deliver the cargo. So when you get a real bad sprain and you break a whole bunch of little muscle fibers in a little area, you broke all the bridges. So you have that area that, we know the bridge is broken, we'll send in some repairs. So all of a sudden, all your cargo is going to that repair destination to repair. It's not going to the destination for your health and your toenails, your fingernails. It's not going to the destination for your eye health, for your hair growth. All that cargo is now going into the destination of repair. So when you get a sprain, you feel a little bit weak. And if you try to go and do too much and you re-sprain that stuff, you're destroying the reparations quicker than they can be repaired. You're going to be constantly sore on that injury. But if you just take it easy, don't do anything, don't move around too much, and give your body a chance to deliver those cargoes and make those reparations, you're going to feel healed up, and then you can get right back on the road again. You can start walking down the dang thing. But what if the bridge didn't collapse? And everything would be running mostly fine, right? My body's repairing itself just as fast as it's destroying itself. That's what I'm after. That in these foods, it doesn't have to be any special chemical or anything. I don't think there's anything that's going to really solve your problem, to be honest with you. Just because of overstimulation and systematic function. If you get overstimulated, it's really bad. And then if you don't wean off of that overstimulation, then you get real sick. But knowing what the foods are, what are my foods for keeping these bridges strong? Like celery, kale, these foods that have bridges, that you can have some kind of fiber in your diet. They say, you need fiber in your diet. These are all foods that have the building blocks for repairing those bridges. If you keep those bridges repaired, you're not going to suffer any injury, and you're not going to feel like extra sore at the end of your shift if you got to do a high intensity job or something. It'd be a lot better. But this isn't a perfect world, and there's a lot of things that are overlooked just because the struggles with transparency and and some people, it's really hard to listen. Like if I go talk to someone, they can't listen to me for more than 5 minutes because it hurts their brain or something. I mean, it's the same way with the doctors. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, it just is too much overstimulation for them. But if we have a way to kind of help the situation of why, what foods are what, and how they help the body, and who's who here, and have a couple charts up, and who's hoarding and who's not, it's kind of sorting all that stuff out, and who's here to destroy us. Because I tell you what, half the world wants to destroy humanity, half the world wants humanity to be humble. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where we can't be humble, but for people that we are trying to be humble to, and give God's grace, being a little bit more prepared in those fields of study, now that we've furthered our study, and being able to provide information on, if you have these signs and symptoms after 6 months or a year, you may need to start looking at allergy foods, because if you don't, you're really increasing the odds and really increasing the risks of causing a lot of people cancer that don't deserve it. And we can eat all the foods that we enjoy. We got to watch our frequencies. We got to watch how we balance our lifestyles. We need to make sure that we're maintaining our activities in the correct way, and and understanding how beneficial medicine really is, and why we should use it in an accurate and appropriate manner without hurting people, because medicine can be just quite dangerous. It's just like anti-inflammatory foods and inflammatory foods. Those basic things. It's the same with uh, traditional medicine and modern medicine. It's the same thing. And they're both good, but too much of a good thing can be bad. Alright, there's my podcast. I'm not on a pod, I'm on Android. That's my uh Capsule Corpse. The Capsule Corporation. I got just my audio recording on my time capsule. Okay. Later, guys. This is, I'm in transition right now. I don't know who I am, but, I sure do hope you enjoy. I'm gonna change my name here soon, so I'm just gonna leave this as a intermission of, my life events. Alright, take it easy, peace out, enjoy. It's about an hour and 30 minutes in. Hope I didn't talk your ear off too much. Hope I was able to bring some kind of interesting scientific discoveries to the table. Alright, later, y'all.